So tonight, one of our members who is an example of what he's going to talk about is Viv Brown has been asked to talk to us about the values of being good in your family, and good stands for get out of debt. So with that, over to you, Viv. Let me just see if you are muted.
I'm unmuted. Thanks, Jasper.
Okay, good. Over to you.
Good evening, everybody. And Jasper asked me to share something that helped me get a legacy going. Jasper, keep your screen shared because I've got nothing to share at the moment.
All right, I'll keep it open.
Thank you. So ladies, gentlemen, 1994, I joined Amway with my wife, and we had a very good mentor who took us aside and said the whole concept of having another business is that you're trying to get to some sort of financial security, and the ideal way to get there is to actually get out of debt. So he said the best goal to have is a good goal, hence the GOOD, and his advice was to go home and draw up a budget. Now, I don't know about you guys, but drawing up a budget gets quite scary when you start seeing how much money you're spending on accommodation, cars, food, children. Jenny and I are privileged and lucky enough to have 4 children. And in 1994, they were all still at school. So it was quite hectic when we did the budget and saw how much money we were managing to go through. And then you start looking at your debt. And we were advised to look at the high interest bearing debt, as that is obviously your credit cards, followed by any personal loans. And if you have bonds, your bond is your next one. And we've got to understand there's good and bad debt. So in some cases, and depending on the age you are, debt is not a bad thing. You need debt to leverage other people's money to be able to make progress. But the thing that we were very aware of was the credit card debt and the overdraft debts. So we made a concerted effort to make sure that every month we were paying those off. Another piece of advice we were given was to start with the smallest debt and to pay that off first. And then you get a feeling of achievement. At least that's one debt you don't have to worry about. And then you free up that money that you were paying every month to put onto the next one. And so you go. Took us 12 years, and we're very proud of ourselves that we carry very little long-term debt. In fact, we have no long-term debt. Most of our debt is short-term, and we have tried to get into the habit of paying off our credit cards every month. Unfortunately, sometimes when you travel now, we find that it's not always that easy to pay off the credit card every month because we have a very strong dollar and a very weak rand. However, being that as it may, we feel that it's quite good advice. And subsequently, I've also heard something else, which I think I'd add on this, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And that is that you build up a 3-month kitty. So you try and pay off your debt, get your the high interest bearing debt down, and you build up a kitty of about 3 months worth of salary. So should you have a sudden disaster like an accident in the car, or you need new tires, new fridge, new stove, life throws these curveballs at you, you have some money to pull on that you don't have to worry about where the money is going to come from. Guys, I know it sounds easier to say it than to do it, but it's amazing what you can do when you focus on it. And the point being is that it didn't happen overnight. Don't expect it to happen overnight, but it does make you aware. And that's one of the other things I believe that I can add to the thing now that I'm involved with the gig thing. It makes a big difference when you start thinking about how the money you're spending today will affect your grandchildren. So when you're thinking of buying that new coat or that fancy computer, you start saying to yourself, what happened if I invested this money in something that would bring in money? Would it not make a better difference? Or if I killed some of that debt rather than trying to keep up with the Joneses? And then it comes back to, I think it's something we taught as wealth coaches, is to get the budget, work out your budget. And Jasper has that very good question of what will you be doing in 7 years' time? And then he takes us up to 21 years' time. And for some of us, 21 years might be in our 50s. And if you're debt-free in your 50s, which we've been fortunate enough to be, it makes a big difference to the decisions and the things you can do. So if you're younger, get some good debt. Don't go away from debt. As I was saying earlier, debt is not a bad thing, but make sure that you address your high interest bearing debt. I'm wondering if there's anything else I could add to that. Jasper, have you got anything you would like me to add to that?
No, I think you just made a comment, and now you need to just explain what you mean by good debt, because obviously you are a good example of applying good debt in your portfolio.
Okay, yes, let's address the good debt. So effectively, when you go into debt, it's generally to buy some sort of thing, and it's trying to finance a lifestyle generally. But all of us have the situation where we generally want to live in a house, and we're in house with your own property. And when you're living in a property, it's not always good debt. It's an asset because it will accumulate value. At least it should, if you maintain it or renovate it or add value to it by building on or something like that. So that's where you're now adding value and actually making an asset. But it's only an asset when you sell it. It's actually a liability because you're forever paying for the electricity, the water and lights, the rates and taxes. The moment you invest in a second property and that property starts making you money, that becomes good debt. So you and when you in a certain earning capacity, you have the ability to have more than one bond, especially if there's going to be some income coming from that property. The banks are open to listening to that income. They're not always these days as open as they used to be. But what happens then is a situation where if you buy the correct property and you can rent it out, you get an income. Effectively, initially, the income don't expect it to cover everything to start with, but a properly bought property, well managed, should start yielding profits within 2 to 3 years. Once that property gets further down the line, it goes up in value and the rent increases with inflation, and now it becomes a really good debt because it becomes a money spinner. Some people will tell you, be careful of residential properties, and I tend to agree with them. Residential properties, you must be very sure of your tenants and your situation and where the property is located. Commercial properties tend to be a little bit less emotional for the people who rent them from you. They use them as a source of income generation. They don't phone you at midnight to tell you that the geezer's blown up or that something's not working, because generally they're not in the office. And then your next one, of course, is industrial. And we've even discussed it in the gig situation where we might even look at storage units or something like that. So those are good debts. A car, for instance, is not necessarily a good ability unless it's a collectible, as in some, a unique Ferrari or a Porsche that there's only so many thousand of them made and you happen to own that. Then it's not only something nice to own, but it also goes up in value. People right now, I'm watching the Tour de France muted in the background, and they're showing us a picture of what I think is Versailles, one of the most prettiest places in France. Sorry, I had to throw that in. I hope somebody else is also watching. Coming back to a good debt, maybe getting some money into gold or silver, and that's normally to hedge against inflation or some sort of monetary situation that we could find ourselves in South Africa if we are re-rated from a ratings point of view and we go into junk, then the rand could lose value overnight. We could see the rand at 20 to the dollar. Holding a bit of gold or silver like that could peg your value of your investment. Off the top of my head now, as I say, paintings or writing a book, that's sort of, and it's not necessarily debt, but it's an investment that you make in some sort of product that will generate an income. So I hope I've addressed the good debt there. And I do want to throw on the table, and it's what Jasper and Gavin have been trying to encourage us with, is getting another stream of income. Because obviously you've got your budget, you've got a fixed amount of income that you're trying to meet your budget with. When you start increasing your income, and that could be through something other than your job or your employment or your business, and you also spread your risk a bit. So having multiple streams of income, I think, is vital to help with the good goal of getting out of debt. That's me. Thanks, Jasper.
Thanks, Viv. And Gavin, you're also quite a proponent of property and had some interesting things that you've done in your family. Anything you want to add to what Viv said on getting out of debt and investment?
I think one of the things that is a big evil in terms of getting out of debt is credit cards. People are very naughty with credit cards. They see it as a means of borrowing rather than a financial instrument to utilize as a means of controlling their spending. One of the rules I have in a credit card is no matter what my credit limit is, and I've got some serious credit limits on my credit cards, I never spend more than I know I'm going to earn in that month. So it was a lesson I learned a very long time ago when I was still a kid and I lived in Yeovil. There was a cobbler down the road from us who kept a little black book. And every day in that black book on the left-hand page, he put money in, on the right-hand page, money out. And he never let the money out column get greater than the money in column. That philosophy, when you use your credit card, makes an awful lot of sense. It allows you to pay off that credit card in full every single month. Because remember, your credit card is free debt if you pay it off within 30 to 60 days of spending. So understand how interest on credit card works and how long you can get away with holding on to that credit before you start paying for it. Because credit card debt is, it can go up to 18 to 22%, depending on the nature of the credit card you've got.